I agree with the Tea Parties. Cut the socialism. But I think it's because of socialism that the Tea Parties will fail. That and more on the Gary DeMar Show today. I think the soft underbelly of the Tea Party movement is its own socialism. And of course, if that's true, it makes them terrible hypocrites, and that should be obvious to everyone. Why do I say this? Why would I say something so controversial as to say that the Tea Party people, the people rallying to cut government, to cut spending, to cut taxes, the people confronting their senators and congressmen in town hall meetings saying, "You have awakened a sleeping giant, take us back to the founding fathers, take us back to the Constitution," carrying signs about the founding fathers and quoting Jefferson and saying, cut the taxes, cut the government, Obama's a fascist and Nazi, a commie, we got to cut the socialism. Why would I call those people socialists? It's because they are. And they are for at least two reasons. They are very clear, and I've talked about this before, Social Security, and by that I mean all government entitlements, including Medicare, Medicaid, etc. And more importantly, and probably more destructively, is public schooling. Now, I've brought up these issues before, and always, well, at least receive a lot of positive comments on Social Security, but when you start talking about public schooling and calling that socialism, well, people want to step back and make all kinds of excuses. So we'll talk about that in a minute. The Tea Party people, it seems to me, don't vote on principle. And this has been brought up by the left, and they've probably not hammered it as much as they should, or they'd have a lot stronger case, it'd be a lot more prevalent. But where were these outspoken people against government debts and government deficits? Where were they when Bush signed his Medicare prescription drug law into effect? I have not heard a convincing case against that by Republicans. $500 billion, actually $500 billion, so originally $440 trillion. The cost currently has climbed up to 500, I believe 500, almost 550 trillion, or 550 billion, sorry. Dollars to pay for Bush's overhaul of health care. At the time, of course, the hypocrisy runs both ways. At the time, the Democrats could not criticize this enough because it was sending billions of dollars to the drug companies, and Republicans couldn't get behind it enough. At that time, 2003, only 9 Republicans in the Senate voted against it. They were all for it. They're all for the largest overhaul of Medicare, which is essentially health care for seniors. In 2003, they're all for it. Where were the fiscal conservatives then? Where was the huge outcry from the public then? Where were the town hall meetings then? They were silent. They are not principled voters. They're voters that simply back their guy. When their guy's in office, it's okay to do those things. Now, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe they slept through that, and as the lady said, Katie Abrams, I believe her name was, we have awakened a sleeping giant. If that's the case, let us turn back and criticize our own guys as well. Let us turn back and criticize the Republican Party just as strongly. Let us threaten them just as loudly that we will boot you from office. The question is, who are we going to replace them with? If we truly vote on principle, then we need to be backing only candidates who will cut the budget, who will fight to reform and privatize Social Security, who will fight to get rid of that scheme. But it's almost impossible to do that. Exhibit A, there's a very good YouTube video by Representative John Culberson from Texas. He's a Republican, is being interviewed by, I think his name is Lawrence O'Donnell, on Hardball, CNN, leftist program. And he pushes him on the issue, says, what are you going to reform? You want to get back to the founding fathers. You want to cut the socialism. Let's talk about Social Security. And he will not answer the question. Let's talk about Medicare. Dances around for 8 to 10 minutes, and of course the host is being very verbally abusive, and a lot of people jumped on that, said he was unkind to the guy. But the truth of the matter is the guy would not answer the question. Here's this guy claiming to be a Jeffersonian Republican in our Senate, or in our House of Representatives, claiming to be a Jeffersonian. I'm standing for the Founding Fathers. And yet, when he's pushed into a corner, he says, I would have voted for the Medicare bill in 1965. And he will not say he wants to abolish, reform, change, privatize, et cetera, Social Security, because that is the third rail of American politics. If you say you want to cut that, everybody's up in arms because they're afraid their retirement, their future, their granny, whoever else is not going to get their check in the future. Well, there are ways we could take care of that, and I don't hear it from the Tea Party. I don't hear an outcry over that because they all want their piece of the pie, just like every other socialist. And for that reason, I believe there's a bit of hypocrisy in the Tea Party movements. That's not even the big issue. The one I'm really concerned about is public schools. When I hear an outcry among the Tea Parties, when I hear a large public outcry against the forced taxation to pay for other people's schooling at the local level, and of course the national level's involved as well, when I hear an outcry over that, when I start to see the Tea Party people pull their kids out of public schooling on principle opposing socialism, then I will take them seriously. Then I will see that they've actually begun to understand the system. They've actually gone to the root of the system. I mean, there is no more socialistic institution in this nation than the public schools. Now, I've said this before in these shows, and I've said it before in articles that I've published. And I remember one comment from a lady on Facebook said, well, that's not socialism, that's our tax dollars at work. And what do you think socialism is? It's when you're taxed for something to pay for someone else's. Maybe they have this strict idea of socialism, thinking it's only redistribution of wealth, but it is redistribution of wealth when you take tax money from somebody to force them to go to an institution or at least pay for some other people to go to an institution. That is socialism. It is the most rampant form of socialism. It's all across the country. It's in every county, in every state across the country. And everyone accepts it. And the Tea Party people accept it. And the Tea Party people use it. And the Tea Party people benefit from it. Not in the sense that they're getting a quality education, by the way, but they benefit from it in the sense that they are having their kids go to schools paid for by forced taxation from other people. In other words, they're beneficiaries of socialism. We could go into this further. What would it take to get serious? What would it take to oppose that form of socialism? Well, you'd either have to take your kids out and put them in a private school, in which case you're liable for tuition. That's a great sacrifice. Or you would have to, if you're in a two-income family, one person would have to quit working and stay at home and teach the kids, which either one of those scenarios is going to mean a reduction of income, or at least a reduction of surplus income. It's going to mean a loss in a standard of living. Not as big a house, not as fancy a car, not as nice of accoutrements, et cetera, et cetera. And I have an article coming out on this on Friday, by the way. And so what does that mean? That is a tremendous sacrifice to make. It requires a tremendous change in lifestyle. There's a lot of inertia preventing it from happening. And so they go the easy route. They'll say, well, it's not really socialism, or that much socialism's not bad, or we need a little bit. And the point, of course, is what they're saying is that enough socialism is good as long as it benefits me. It's rank hypocrisy. And I'll just say it one more time. Until the Tea Party people begin to pull their kids from public schools, begin to oppose public schooling on principle as socialism, until I begin to hear the outcry from that, I will not take the Tea Party seriously. I'll support their goals, I'll support what they're saying, but I won't take them seriously, and I don't think they'll have very much effect. They will have an effect until their guy gets into office, and then they will dwindle and be happy again until the next liberal radical gets into office. So I don't have a lot of faith in the Tea Parties, but I do support their goal. Thank you for joining me on the Gary DeMar Show.
For more related to this topic, check out God versus Socialism, a biblical critique of the New Social Gospel. You will find it at AmericanVision.com.